Hello, I'm Georgia Raisman. I'm on Front Up today with Kate Hamilton, who is a once and former Nantucketer,
Yes.
formerly head of visitor services here in
Yes.
Nantucket, and a longtime Nantucket lover and resident, and now, sadly, a resident of Beaufort, South Carolina.
Yes.
Which a happy resident of Beaufort, South Carolina, we have to say.
Very happy.
But she's back here to talk to us about similarities and differences and what Nantucket has taught her and what Nantucket can learn from her.
Well, I've been very fortunate in my life because, not to go into all the background, but I was a summer kid on Nantucket. I was a waitress on Nantucket. I was everything pretty much. And then I had a hopefully a successful career here too. I worked in New York and Boston in advertising and publishing and PR, and then I brought that to Nantucket. So it was a real great meeting of the minds for me because it used my professional experience with my Nantucket experience. And I'm a tourism buff. I really am. I go to a lot of different places. I look at, tourism isn't about all the time how many people you can get someplace. It's the quality of their experience, because they will not come back if certain things, start to happen. So it's very interesting for me to be here now because I'm not a town employee anymore.
You can say what you think.
I can speak so much freely, which I would like to a little bit. And because I'm friends with a lot of town employees, I'm friends with people in the private sector. And my sister's here, which is always great. The only thing that isn't is my husband and my moose.
Oh, you're here by yourself.
I'm here by myself. And my surfboard to go stand up.
So a little bit before we get to about you in Nantucket, I'd just
Right.
like to show some photographs
Sure.
of where you are now,
Sure.
which is in Beaufort, South Carolina.
Beaufort.
In the Low Country. of
In the
South
Low
Carolina?
Country. I live actually on one of the Sea Islands, and I actually live on Little Horse Island and St. Helena Island.
Ah.
My husband's probably going to get mad because he wants to keep it secret, but
I can see why, because you brought some photos. I'm going to show some
Yes.
of these photos. This is, and you have a house with a long
Deck,
out
yes.
to sort of a dock almost, out to what would you call this?
it's a river.
A river.
and
here are the horses.
those are
these
the
little horses or regular
These are
size?
marsh tackies.
Yeah.
And they are actually very few and far between. They originally came over from Spain, and they're kind of thick horses. They're working horses. And we have 5 horses and 2 ponies.
So are these yours or are these wild?
No, they are wild,
These are wild.
and
My
protected.
goodness. My goodness.
And we just
protected.
happened to get a house that they're in
Looks
the area.
out at them. So the dock from your house, here is Moose, famous dog.
Everybody misses Moose.
Everybody misses Moose. Moose was the Nantucket Chronicle winner of a dog, best, most famous,
And,
most lovable dog.
I mean, that's
the
what
rainbow.
it's just extraordinary.
What a beautiful,
Every
beautiful
time I
sight.
drive up, I can't believe I live there. You
How
have to pinch
serene.
me.
Oh, and we used to say that about Nantucket too. A lot of us still
Well,
do.
and the thing
Here's
is about
another seen out into the
Yes,
out
there's
into
my
the marsh.
Moose is I think he thinks he's a supermodel.
He's a contemplative dog. He's
Yes.
contemplating the hereafter or the here and now.
But
maybe
he's
more likely.
He's very soulful. And then I have my Billy, who's a little camera shy, and she's 18.
Oh my gosh, very old. So this is in the distance of this photograph is the ocean. You
Well,
can't see,
you can see
probably
the
can't
water,
the
and then
water.
on the other side is the ocean.
So there's a barrier between.
We are
in
right.
between?
We are 3 miles from the ocean. There's a place called Hunting Island, and my husband and I often go surfing there in the morning.
How wonderful is that? Oh my gosh.
We do.
how
I mean, it
beautiful.
is, as I said to people, I felt like I was cheating on Nantucket,
Yeah.
but it was time for me to go, and I wanted to go, and I was just so lucky to get down there, and I've had such an amazing experience.
How did you find it?
Natural, on the water, that will be a development in the area. And so I read about him, and I heard he was doing the festival, and I called him up and I said, "You need me." Not very shakily, because I was new there and everything else. And so I worked with him, and I still stay in touch. And then I got a phone call from the town of Port Royal asking me to do their 4th of July celebration.
So you kind of moved into the role you had here.
And
in a way.
I said, I can do that. And it's interesting because they have 4 council members, selectmen, a town manager, and a mayor.
a mayor. Wow.
Yes.
Aha.
And it's, I can tell you, I find some of the selectmen here to be a bit removed and in the community. I mean, when I put the 4th of July event on, every selectman came, sang the national anthem, and were nice enough and gave me a nice thank you after all of it too. I mean, there's a lot of, and I think we don't always hear all the opinions of the selectmen here. And I think it's important. I think the next races are going to be pretty strong, and I think what we're going to see is people, especially with the tipping point and that going on, coming forward to have their voice heard. Which kind of brings me back to the tipping point, because I drove by the tipping point on my way to the Stop and Shop, and I saw the people. And I wanted to take a picture, Georgia, because I wanted to say, I hope you all come to town meeting next year, and I hope you also all vote. For, being a selectman is not a popularity contest out here, and there's Nantucket is going through a lot of changes. And one thing I noticed too, and this is all, this is me, this is Kate Hamilton. It's got nothing to do with anybody else, but I noticed with the tipping point, and I'm not going to give my opinion about this, but I really support people going after what they want to go after to change. But I find some of them have gotten extremely nasty to people and are implying things that, I have a friend of mine that they were saying things like giving people kickbacks.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, if you're going to be out there, first of all, learn your stuff, because another thing with a lot of these people, they did their developments too. They went into, I didn't, and I wanted to be a good playing field. I know people know I'm friends with certain people with the town, but if I don't agree with them, I don't agree with them. It's quite simple. But I really think that there's got to be an element of decorum here.
No question. I think if you want to really achieve any kind of consensus about how to move forward and whether the town should ultimately take on a legal challenge, you have to have a big tent.
Right.
And you can't have a big tent if you're alienating one group after another by being either insulting or making bad inferences. I mean, my bugaboo is too the issue of ascribing terrible motivations to people, or just even ascribing motivations that other people would think are reasonable, like they're going to make too much money. They're going to make a lot of money, yes, but that money, we're a capitalist society. That in and of itself is not horrible. So what you need to do is focus on what is horrible, and enough that's horrible about this development that you don't need to get into personalities.
Well, it's interesting because I have worked in all the sectors. I worked in the public, I worked in the private, and I worked in the nonprofit. So I think I have some understanding, and I think people need to learn more about the process. I know that the town has worked for a long time to try to get some kind of affordable housing. We are as low can be, with the other states. They have a requirement for certain things. I also know that they put forward a lot of the safe harbors for areas, and people just say no. And I think I think it's time as I say, I'm not the soothsayer, and I'm sure there are people rolling their eyes right now as they listen to this, but that's okay, because I'm okay. But the thing is that stuff needs to look, someone recently told me that someone was losing their housing, and they probably was around my age or whatever, and that they're so upset that it's affecting them mentally. Who needs to feel that way at a certain age?
Right.
We have a service industry with tourism and things like that, and I think it's important that people really look at everything. Obviously, Georgia, I still feel incredibly passionate about Nantucket, because I wouldn't be, saying this stuff if I didn't.
Yeah, and I think we are much more than we were even a couple of years ago. Everybody is behind the idea of affordable housing. There's nobody that says we don't need it, or we don't want it, or even not in my backyard. I think it's a question of scale, appropriateness, size.
I couldn't agree with that, but I do think
it with the town.
I do think it's a little bit in my backyard.
Well,
I think
in
that there's a lot of
Surfside. It might be only because there's so much going on down there.
I'm not talking about Surfside. I also know a lot of places that were turned down. And I just think that it's an important issue, and I just, I think it hasn't brought out the best in everybody, you
Well,
know.
that's for sure. And this kind of thing almost will never bring out the best. But you do need leadership that tries to encourage a more
Right,
inclusive.
and I mean, I think we should hear more from the selectmen about this, you
Well,
know.
even leadership among the various opposition groups. I think they have to lead with a they have to lead.
I
not
thought,
just encourage,
I thought the meeting
acrimony.
was great, and I liked hearing from everybody. As I said, you know, I don't live here anymore, so certain things are different for me now.
And just the turnout. I mean, your point is right. The turnout was huge, and now let's see all those people come to a town
Right,
meeting
because
to
that's where
discuss this.
where it all started, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm
And
just
let's all see I think a lot of people over the years have missed the point that I think Linda Williams made and that Nat Lowell has made, which is that downzoning, downzoning, it's actually upzoning, but what we think of as downzoning, changing something from 2 to 1 acre, can in many instances be a way of fending off 40B developments,
Right.
because any individual parcel can become more valuable.
Right.
And people don't understand that. So they get up at town meeting and they say, oh, I moved to this area because it was 2 acre zoning and I want 2 acre zoning, and everybody says, okay, 2 acre zoning, without realizing that there's a connection between perpetuating larger zoning and inviting a larger developer in. So that connection has to be made clearer. And over the years, if we, there's a lot of education that has to be done.
Oh, and I think that's an important aspect of the town. I think they should have a, you know, I don't know if they have one now, but they need a really full-time PR person. When
That'd be
I
a good
was
idea.
working with Port Royal, I worked with their social media, everything, and we worked hand in hand. And not only does he do a newsletter weekly, they also, you know, tons of social media, and you know, people really know, and a lot of times the people that are already a department head and stuff, maybe they're not well versed, but they also are too busy.
Right. They have an advisor now. I mean, the ZBA has an advisor on 40B. The town has an advisor on 40B. That guy should have a social media person,
Right.
because there's so much misapprehension, misinformation about how 40B works, how the process works, that should be cleared up before we get to, because we get to these meetings where people stand up and say things that are completely
Right,
incorrect, just because they don't know any better.
Right,
It's not,
and they don't understand. But just switching gears just for a second, one thing I noticed too, that I was in Narragansett, which was we kind of go where hopefully some waves are, and that are like nat dog friendly. But before I could even get on the beach there, and before I parked my car, I had to pay to go on the beach, and I had to pay for my parking. So, you know, when you look around Nantucket and you see all these incredible beaches, because that's one of my favorite things. One of my favorite things is to go check the waves. And that's a really great thing about Nantucket. I mean, I love Nantucket in so many ways, and the trails and everything else, but I think, you know, things need to open up a little bit. I mean, I live in an area now where I drive by like a double wide on my way, you know, but it's part of the culture, you know, and there's great people that live in them, you know, and my mother always said to me, Kate, never be a snob. You're going to miss out on a lot in life if you don't really look at things like that. And I am, you know, I am so grateful to be here and, you know, see my sister and my friends. And as I said, you know, I've seen some friends of mine, you know, it's hard to live here at times. You know, it's beautiful, and there's you know, God, what's so amazing, anybody gets hurt or anything, the town opens
rallies
up.
Rallies
You
around,
know,
no
which
matter
is-
what political issues might
Right.
drive
It'd be
people
nice
apart.
if we could see more of that, you know.
Yeah,
But
well, you don't
then
want more disasters to
No,
happen.
no, not disasters, but I mean in the
Even-
important
yeah,
issues.
yeah.
But then, of course, I sound like Pollyanna a little bit,
Yeah.
so it's. But yeah, but I'm, you know, as I said, I'm happy to be here, and I'm getting to do a lot. I mean, people talk about traffic too, and I can honestly tell you, I made the whole stretch. We drove from Beaufort to Beaufort, North Carolina, to Maryland, New Jersey. I have a brother there, and Connecticut, and then here, and then Rhode Island, and every place had extraordinary traffic.
But you don't pay extraordinary amounts of money to come over on a ferry and
I
stay
know.
and then encounter mainland traffic.
Right.
That's
Well,
one of
yeah,
our-
but
that's one of our
you know,
issues.
that's a Nat Lowell question,
Right.
because you know he's the one who knows all these insights and outs.
But we'll have to get to that to him on the next one. Well, thank you for coming
Sure.
on, Kate. It's been great, and I love your insights and thoughts.
Thank you, and thank you for
And
the
keep-
opportunity.
keep
It's
coming
been.
back.
I will. Thank you so
coming
much.
back. Thank you
That means
again.
a lot to me.